So, just during the interview, remember, to look at me. I'm going to attempt to keep this well framed, but
I won't move. I'll just sit here.
you feel free to move around a little bit. But I'm trying out a different lens if I like the way it looks on interview stuff. But can you just start, give me a little bit, your name, your major, and kind of a little bit about some of the things you do at UNL?
Well, my name's Dave Gottschalk, and I'm a political science major. I'm a senior. My extent of involvement on campus has been pretty minimal over 4 years, but recently I decided I should start writing and kind of hone my ideas. I've always been active in politics, and so I started writing for the Daily Nebraskan. And I think I've gotten a lot of good reception with some of the columns I've written, so pretty happy with what I'm doing.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you went, what you were doing before you were writing, and kind of what led you to decide to start writing for the Daily Nebraskan?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time just really trying to understand how the world worked. Like I said, I'm a political science major, so I was spending a lot of time in classes, I wasn't really worried about a resume. I figured, I can impress enough people if I'm educated and understand myself ahead of time before any kind of interview. But I had a buddy who was editing at the Daily Nebraskan, and he had read a lot of my stuff and said, you got to come in and just start writing because there's an audience out there, and they want to hear what you're going to say. So at the beginning of the year, actually the day before the paper ran, the first issue of the year, they called me in, and they needed me to put together 1,050 words to print for the next day. So it was kind of hectic, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I guess we'll just start paying you and you can work for us. And that's how it got started. It was all pretty quick.
Obviously, in our time as friends, we've both had a lot of pretty lengthy conversations regarding our political opinions and whatnot. Have you found that this has been a good outlet for you to express your political side to a broader audience than you were before?
Certainly. I mean, I always got involved. I would get involved in campaigns. I do volunteer work for various nonprofits, but I never actually published anything. Never sent anything out so that it could be heard by more than just my friends who were probably tired of hearing me talk about it. So I would say, yeah, I wish that you could get a little more dialogue with the audience, but other than that, I really do feel like it's helped me understand my ideas and find a way to moderate myself to be marketable to the public.
Okay. So what stuff falls under the guidelines of what you write about in your columns? Is there anything specific that you write about, or is it a broad kind of?
It's pretty broad. Usually it's just politics. I'm pretty good at rambling about any specific issue, and because of that, whatever is relevant to the news cycle that given day, I'll try and put something together for it.
How did you first get interested in politics? You've obviously been kind of an aficionado since I've known you. What prompted you to take that path?
Well, I grew up in a political family. My parents are pretty apolitical. My mom's a Democrat, my dad's a Republican. So I've always had a nice balance. But my extended family, every time they'd come in town, they're all working in D.C., they're various consulting firms, very big in the Democratic Party. So, we'd sit around and talk politics anytime I saw them. And I took a big interest early on. In third grade, my teacher posted all the presidential candidates, and when it was Bush versus Gore. And, I went back there and I looked through all the candidates, their issue stances, and I ended up trying to convince my parents to vote for the Green Party candidate, which I think was Ralph Nader at the time, but I was in third grade, so.
Starting out young?
Yeah, very young, actually.
Has it just kind of continued to?
Yeah, it's really been upward since then. I came to college, actually, I wanted to make movies. I was a broadcasting major, but I spent a lot of time talking with various advisors, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized I have no idea what I want to do with my life, but politics seemed to be my passion, and because of that, I thought, why not follow your passion?
So it's a 10-year plan from now. What is Dave Gottschalk going to be doing in the professional world?
In 10 years?
5, 10. What's your long-term plan?
I envisioned myself in Washington, D.C. you never know what's going to happen over 10 years. But I would say, if everything plays out all right, I'll be, working in D.C., whether it's at a think tank or a policy institute for a congressman, or the State Department's never left my mind. I'd love to travel abroad and do some work overseas.
Is that kind of dream job stuff, or is that kind of...
The dream job, yeah, I would say so. I've always wanted to go to China and learn the language, and I don't think there's any other way I'd be able to learn the language unless I lived there and the State Department was requiring that I learn a language. But yeah, I think China is going to be an increasingly important country over the coming years, and I'd like to be the guy who was considered an expert on it.
Okay, my last question for you here. If you could give, obviously, there's differing levels of political, not even activism, but knowledge in our age group. In the millennial age group, we have kids like you and me who try to be well informed, and then there are other people that you take less of an interest in it. I guess if you could just share some words with the general public about your opinion. Well, if there's just a tidbit of knowledge that you could spread out to the entire world, you could say something to a huge group of people about what you do, what would it be?
Well, about myself, I think, what drives me is that I'm watching these revolutions happen over the last 4 and 5 years, and these people are, fighting, dying, overthrowing dictators for the democratic institutions that we've had since the, foundation of our country. And to me, that's important. That shows how incredible and how much people want to be a part of their government. And today, not a lot of people look at the world like that. So I think we need to reassess our feelings toward the government, because we are incredibly lucky to be in America, as some would call it, the greatest country in the world. And regardless of anything that's happened over the last 10 years in the war on terror, we really still are a beacon of hope for the rest of the world.
Okay, a follow-up question to that then we'll call it. How do you do that? How do you motivate the masses to care more about something that they don't currently care tremendous amounts about?
I don't know. It takes a major issue to get the general public really, really going and moving. And the war on terror did that. A lot of different things during the Bush administration is why we saw such hype and excitement for President Barack Obama. And in his second election against Mitt Romney, the young people were out in full force, higher than they've ever been. So, I think we're getting to that point where people are starting to care. The internet's giving them the information, and now it's just a matter of continuing to spread that information so that people have the knowledge and then the time to get involved in politics.
Cool. All right, man.
How'd I do?